Hi everyone. I've been having some problems with my 1992 Toyota Camry starting. The backup lights have quit working and the starter won't engage unless you wiggle the gear shift around. That's all a sign of a dirty neutral safety switch. I'll have to take that switch off and clean it. If you've never seen that done before, I'm going to try to show you how it's done in this video. It's not too bad to get to. You'll need just some common wrenches as I have listed on this sheet. All stuff that you should find around your home garage. I use carburetor cleaner for degreaser and a little stiff brush. Once I took everything apart, I put it in a pan and I squirted it down real good and cleaned it. That works really good. You'll need a little bit of grease too to lubricate this thing before you put it back together. Now you'll need to remove the battery and the battery tray, and underneath that battery is a device here. I'm not sure what this is called, but the throttle cables pass through this. And you remove these 3 bolts in the triangle position, and you can move this out of the way. That neutral safety switch is located on the side of the transmission, right down in that hole. The cable from the gear shifter is connected to that arm, and that arm turns a shaft that goes into your transmission and shifts your gears. Located on the front of that shaft is that neutral safety switch. You'll have to get down there and remove that 12 millimeter nut off the arm itself and pull that arm off, and then you'll be able to get to that switch. There's a couple of 10 millimeter bolts to take off, and then you got to work it off the front of that shaft. Up at the top here, you can see that there's an electrical connector, and just squeeze that tab at the top and wiggle that thing off of there. Remove your two 10 millimeter bolts. There's a large flat washer that's holding a rubber gasket down behind this large 7/8 inch nut. Bend the tabs up on that washer. Take that nut off of there and get that to the bench, and you can see what you need to do to it. Now mine's really covered with grease. I've had an oil leak in this car for several years, and things have got caked under there with grease. So I'm going to take this thing in and get it all cleaned up before I take it apart and start working on it. It's been under there 22 years. I can only imagine what the inside of this switch is going to look like. The original factory grease is just, I'm sure it'll be a mess. So I've got it cleaned up here. You can see the back of this thing, this compound that holds the wires in that are connected to that bus bar on the inside. And they pass up and go into that electrical connector up there. There's a couple of tabs that you have to bend up with a screwdriver up at the top near that thing. See that elongated hole? That's the transmission shifter pin hole. And as you move your gear shifter, it twists that back and forth to perform various functions. All right, I've got it apart here. And this thing is really, really nasty on the inside. I'll show you some close-ups. This grease has deteriorated to the point to where it's piled up on there and gummed up. And that swing arm that goes across there is supposed to short across those bus bars and engage the starter or the backup lights. And you can look at this stuff and just see it's really bad. On the bottom side of that arm, there's 2 metal contacts that slide up into that arm. They're spring-loaded, and the springs keep them pushed against that bus bar for a good tight electrical connection. I was telling you there's a couple of tabs that you need to bend up on this. If you look closely, right below that electrical connector there's some tabs that are sticking straight up. Bend those up and straighten them out with a pair of pliers, and then remove those 6 screws. Here's those little tabs. There's the one on this side, and there's the one on the other side. And those slide through the little square slots on the top of this, the back of this switch. So I've got to get this thing all cleaned up now and get it ready, and I'll lubricate it, clean those contacts, and it's quite a mess. There's a rubber O-ring that has to come off there also. And as you can see, that O-ring on there, it's just stuck. I'll have to pull it loose. Okay, I've got the arm off there, and on the bottom side of it, there's those 2 little tabs, contacts that fit up in those slots. There's the 2 little springs that go under them. You can see the round holes there. And as you move that arm back and forth, these little connectors short to engage the starter in the park position and the neutral position. And in between that position, there's a backup light connection. You'll actually be able to see these whenever I get this thing cleaned up. This is actually a pretty simple type switch. It's nothing complicated about this at all. It's been there for a long time, and it's done a good job till it got all nasty. The little spring fits down in that hole, and then the little tabs go down over the top of that spring, and the spring keeps tension pushed against the bus bar. Now, I won't be able to do this. I'm going to have to set the camera down. Hang on just for a second. I'll get this slipped in place so you can see how it works. And here we go. All right, one of them's in there, and when you push it up and down, the spring pushes it back out, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So now to get this back of this thing cleaned out and get the bus bar cleaned up, and that shouldn't take too long, and I'll be back with you. All right, here it is all cleaned up. There's the rubber O-ring. I polished that bus bar with some fine emery cloth. I put a very thin film of grease, axle grease actually, across that contact, and I put it across the back of this switch so this thing will move smoothly. That should work fine. Should last me at least the rest of my life. Since we've retired the Camry, it's been a faithful car and worked for us for 22 straight years, and now I've retired, bought a new 2014 Hyundai Sonata, and it's replacing the Camry. The Camry is going to be our dependable second car. It still runs and looks like new. So it's going to sit there in the garage to be used whenever we can't use the Hyundai for whatever reason. All right, I got everything cleaned up. The arm fits down on this thing like this. You can see the gap under there, and when I press down on this with my finger, it springs back up. So those springs are free now, and they're doing their job. And they will hold these 2 contacts against those bus bars. I'm betting this thing will work like a new switch. Okay, now I've got it back together, and it moves freely. Not super freely because there's a little tension on those springs in there. But it moves back and forth. If I can hold it down. So there, it goes all the way across, back and forth, no problem. And the only thing I really have left here is to bend those two little tabs back down where they belong. And this thing's ready to go back on the car. I'll see you there in just a minute. All right, I got it back on the car. I got the two 10mm bolts on the sides, hold it in, and I've got the electrical connector plugged in. The only thing left to do is put that flat gasket on there, the flat washer with the lock tabs, put the big 7/8 inch nut on there, bend those tabs over, and put the arm back on. All right, I've got it back together now, and I was right. It works like a new switch again. I've gone through all the different positions and tested everything, and I finally got my backup lights back. I haven't had backup lights for a long time. All right, I hope this video helped you folks in some way to better understand how these switches work. And if you got your own project to do, maybe this will help out. You all have a good day now and take care.